Welcome to the Darkstream, Voxday, voxday.blogspot.com, and unauthorized.tv. Thanks for tuning in. It is a hot one here, but we are in good form, and the fire is spreading. I'm not surprised. I'm a little surprised that Patreon was dumb enough to let it get to this point. But I'm delighted that it has. And, what we are witnessing is the beginning of the end, certainly of this dispute, possibly of Patreon, possibly of the entire concept of big tech censorship. And there's a lot of misinformation that is being spread around, some of it well-intentioned, some of it very badly intentioned. But regardless, what a lot of people are saying in their analyses, despite their best efforts, is not correct and is not true. And so I'm going to address a couple of the points that people have brought to my attention. And it's interesting because even when you're looking at the negative commentary of people whose motives are diametrically opposed to your own, it's actually quite useful because that helps us understand a little better what people on the other side are thinking. And it also helps us understand a little better how we have to phrase things and how we have to explain things when people are not getting it. So for example, it took me a long time. It took me months to figure out how to explain tortious interference to people who didn't understand the concept. To me, it seemed very basic, very easy, not at all difficult. But for some reason, people get hung up on the idea that somebody has to have done something wrong in order for it to be tortious interference. And that's not correct. It's not totally irrelevant because there is a form of tortious interference called negligent tortious interference, which does require the action to be wrongful. So if you don't mean to interfere with the relationship between two other people, but you do something that is wrongful, then you can be held responsible even though you didn't mean to. But when the action is purposeful, when the action is knowing, then the tortious, it's called intentional tortious interference, that does not need to be a wrongful act. And that's where the whole illustration about backing out of your driveway comes in. For whatever reason, that was the example that finally caused a lot of people who were struggling with the concept to go, oh, okay, now I get it. And so, excuse me, the interesting thing, of course, is that various other people who have been deplatformed by Patreon, like Lauren Southern, like Sargon of Akkad, they have said that they're intending to bring their own arbitrations in company, I would presume, with a number of their supporters. But here's the thing. The information that is out there is incorrect. Any user of Patreon, whether they're a creator, whether they're a user, whether they were supporting somebody who was deplatformed or not, whether they were deplatformed or not, any of those things, everybody now has a case against Patreon because of what Patreon has done in its attempt to defend itself against Owen and his bears. This is one of those situations where, the attempt to solve the problem actually is making the problem considerably worse. Unknown Sailor asks, what could possibly make people think that there has to be nefarious intent for there to be tortious interference? Well, because first of all, that's true if you're talking about negligent tortious interference. And it's not about actually intent, it's about a wrongful act. But the main thing that people struggle with for some reason, the main thing that people have a difficult time understanding is they think that if your action was acceptable, legal, then it can't be tortious interference. And that's completely wrong. The original case, the original precedent for tortious interference specifically involved somebody doing something he had the perfect right to do. Here's the thing that's a little bit strange about this, is that the whole concept of tortious interference, it's about the interference, not about whatever it is that you did. And so, when Patreon or Patreon's defenders or even Patreon's lawyers get hung up on the idea that, well, we had the right to do it. That doesn't matter. That has literally nothing to do with it. The only question is, did you do what we said you did? Yes. And did that action interfere in the relationship between two other parties? And if the answer is also yes, boom, tortious interference. So it's not about, well, we had the right to do this. Everybody knows. If you had the right to do it, fine. Now, as it happens, Patreon didn't have the right to do it. Now, I will say that I genuinely believe that they thought they did, but it's become clear that not only did the Trust and Safety Council not know what their own community guidelines were, it is clear that their lawyers didn't know what their community guidelines were. And so, the whole idea, and people have repeated, this is the first thing, we're going to go over a couple of these things that people have misrepresented or just failed to understand. Like, for example, Babel Bear says, Sargon thinks only users who are still under the old TOS can sue. I mean, that's amazing. There's two errors right in the first sentence. No, any user of Patreon has a very strong claim for arbitration against Patreon for deceptive practices. Each and every, and the thing is that there's multiple levels of these deceptive practices. On the one level, you've got what some of the bears are complaining about, which is we followed your terms of use and then you changed them on us. Okay, so that's a deceptive practice, right? And then they've got a new claim. So they're now amending their claims because after they filed their demands for arbitration, then Patreon filed a lawsuit against them, which was a violation of Patreon's waiver of group actions. And they filed two different things. They filed the lawsuit, and then they filed the application for complex litigation. Okay? So that's a second set of claims. But there is a third set of claims that applies to everybody. And that's right in their, it's right front and center. It's in the subtitle of their dispute resolution. It says, you waive your right to a jury trial and you waive your right to class action. And that's absolutely utterly and totally deceptive. That is a blatant lie, and you don't do it because you can't. It is not possible for anyone to waive their right to a jury trial until they are actually in a trial. Not an arbitration, in an actual trial. You certainly don't do it by clicking on a website. Not even remotely possible. Secondly, you can't waive your right to group action if you are a consumer in a contract of adhesion. So if you're any user of Patreon, you have been the victim of Patreon's deceptive practices by them claiming that you've waived something that you didn't. Tom Forsyth said, for a detailed legal breakdown, check out Viva Frey's video. His video is pretty good, but he does make a number of mistakes. So it's good, don't get me wrong, especially given the limited information that he had, but there are some mistakes on that. But the point is, that language, that misleading and deceptive language with the not just unconscionable, but illegal provision in their dispute resolution is in all 4 of their most recent terms of use. It may be in the previous ones too, but I haven't bothered looking. It's in the April 19th version. It's in the January 1st version. It's in the July 1st version. It's in the July 16th version. Exact same language, all deceptive, all misleading, all providing a open and shut claim against Patreon. So literally, every single individual user, creator, or patron has a very strong arbitration claim against Patreon. And they can try to claim, oh, you can't arbitrate this, you have to go to court. Well, they're wrong. Their cases are wrong. I mean, they get it wrong constantly. The judge even called them out for this. He said the cases they cite don't support their argument. And they never do. I'll give you an example. And I'm gonna address one of the issues that apparently this was brought up by some of the Owen Benjamin haters. Can't you go to jail for extortion? See, this is the theme that Patreon's been pushing, and that some of Patreon's defenders have been pushing. The narrative Patreon will put together is that this was a scheme hatched by Vox and Owen to shake down Patreon for millions. So we concocted a scheme and arranged to get them to ban him. I mean, first of all, that's ridiculous. Secondly, I don't care at all. I would rather see Patreon burn to the ground than have them pay anybody a dime. If Patreon wants to come out and say, we will never settle this, let them say it. Let them see how many people give a quantum of a damn that they won't get any money out of it. See, this is a failure of Sun Tzu 101, know your enemy. Do Owen and the Bears like money? Sure, I think they probably do. But you know what Owen and the Bears would like a lot more? To see Patreon burn to the ground and go to hell. And, there's I'll give you an example. When I was talking to a lawyer for another company, smarter lawyer, something that they understood very clearly, in my opinion, was that if somebody who's only into the whole thing for $10 spends $250 just to make your life difficult, it's not about money. It's about pure, unadulterated hate. you know. And so, the one thing that I haven't seen any signs of from the behavior of Patreon's lawyers. I mean, we don't really have, any information on what goes on inside Patreon. That's why they hire outside counsel to do all their talking. But the complete failure to understand the situation after all this time is kind of remarkable. And, it's it's like they don't understand that they're dealing with tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people who have been getting deplatformed and attacked by people like them for at least 10 years now. And you want to say, look, you dorks still hate the jocks that you envied in junior high and high school. So surely you should be able to understand the concept that there are people out there that you have mistreated, people that you have abused, and they want revenge. I mean, would the average, bitter gamma who's been hating the captain of the football team ever since, his second year of high school, when the guy, humiliated him in front of, a couple girls or something, is he really going to stop hating that guy if, a few years after college or something, they run into each other and the guy says, "Hey, I'm sorry. Here's $25. Does that make it all better?" It's just crazy. So anyhow, let's get back to talking about this. So they're right though. The theme is, and it has been from the beginning, that this is extortion. This is extortion. Owen asked for $11 billion. Or else what? Or else his backers would file arbitrations. And so the funny thing is, they're trying to claim that, well, this means that Owen is the real party. Guys, tortious interference. Tortious interference, by definition, requires two different parties. And here's the other thing. If you're claiming that Owen is the real party, if you're claiming that Owen, what did I just do? Well, I think I just moved this up. There. If you're claiming that Owen is the real party, then why are you suing the Bears? Why aren't you suing Owen? I mean, the judge has already pretty strongly demonstrated that they don't have a case against the Bears either, And so, here's the interesting thing, and here's why they're suddenly getting defensive about this. Because they have been violating the JAMS rules from the very beginning. JAMS Rule 17F, the parties will not offer as evidence, and the arbitrator shall neither admit into the record nor consider prior settlement offers by the parties, or statements or recommendations made by a mediator, or other persons in connections with efforts to resolve the dispute being arbitrated. So the mere fact that you guys know what Owen's lawyer and the Bears' lawyer told them it would cost them for settlement is a violation of the JAMS rules. Now, what they tried to claim is, and as they said, statements made in settlement negotiations are admissible to show the motive or the intent of the attorney or party involved. The attorney statements in settlement negotiations admissible to show client was acting for improper purpose. Now, the thing is that the case that they cited, it was actually involving the Riverdance guy, Paul Flatley versus Morrow in 2006. Attorney's threats to publicly accuse celebrity of rape if demand was not met was admissible as evidence of crime of extortion. Yeah. So in order for it to be extortion, you have to have accused them of a criminal act. So in another ruling that's cited on this, it says, we emphasize that our conclusion that Mauro's communications constituted criminal extortion as a matter of law are based on the specific and extreme circumstances of this case. In other words, it has nothing to do with the kind of thing we're talking about here. Extortion is the threat to accuse the victim of a crime or expose or impute to him any deformity, disgrace, or crime. Now, was that the threat? What crime did Owen's lawyers accuse them of? What crime did Owen accuse them of? Nothing. He just said, if you don't settle it, we will bring the arbitrations. And that's fine. That is not extortion by any definition. In fact, they specifically say that this case should not be read to imply that rude, aggressive, or even belligerent pre-litigation negotiations, whether verbal or written, that may include threats to file a lawsuit, report criminal behavior to authorities, or publicize allegations of wrongdoing necessarily constitute extortion. In fact, Owen's lawyers didn't do anything, or his lawyer, singular, didn't do anything. All they did is say, we will bring these arbitrations. And they did. Didn't file a lawsuit, didn't threaten to report criminal behavior, didn't threaten to publicize any allegations of wrongdoing. So all of this extortion talk is total nonsense. And by the way, you know what Patreon left out? They made Owen an offer. I'm not going to say anything about it because you're not supposed to talk about that stuff. But they kind of leave that little thing out when they keep complaining about this. Because you know why? Because they're trying to make a big deal out of the amount of money. But the funny thing is that the amount of money is not very much. DoorDash had to pay $9.5 million in arbitration fees. Patreon may end up paying more than that because they've been so stupid that they've gone ahead and encouraged all these other people. They've opened the door for literally 4 million people to bring arbitrations against them. Let's do the math here. So 4 million times, we'll say roughly 25,000 for the arbitration fees. Who knows what the lawyers cost? We'll just say about the 25,000. Let's see, that's $100 billion. So my advice is invest in jams if you can. Figure out a way, because Patreon has just created a vulnerable, not just, but over the course of this year, they've created about $100 billion in potential legal liabilities. Okay, so then let's address the next issue. The main problem the 72 bears will have to overcome is that they don't have an actual claim. Patreon did not do anything to them. Okay, that's just wildly and insanely off. Number one, the 72 bears have fantastic claims. The 72 bears now have open and shut claims. I mean, like claims that they're automatically going to win on. Like any doubt that they were going to win their arbitrations is now gone because of the lawsuit. First of all, tortious interference. That clearly happened. The only defense about that, the only defense against the, hang on, there's a mosquito. The only defense against the tortious interference is for them to claim that there was not a separate relationship between the creator and the patron. That's probably not going to hold up for them. But at least it's an argument. At least they have an argument there. The second claims are related to the deceptive practices. That's pretty open and shut. They changed the rules 4 days after being told that they were going to be facing the arbitrations. They changed the rules, and then they didn't notify people. So those claims are very strong. But there's additional claims, and the 72 bears are in the process. Some of them, in fact, have already successfully amended their claims and submitted them. But they relate to the fact that Patreon waived its right to bring a group action and then filed 2 group actions in court. They're toast on that. They have absolutely no hope whatsoever of winning any of the 72 arbitrations where the arbitrator permits the claims to be amended to include the lawsuit. And apparently, JAMS has already told all the 72 bears that they can amend their claims, that they should amend their claims rather than bring a new and second arbitration. So contrary to, the idea that the bears don't have any claims is total nonsense. They have absolute and certain claims, but we're not done. There's also the claims related to their deceptive practices that we recently covered, which we just talked about with regards to the fake waiver of the jury trial and the fake waiver of the group action. And the group action one is particularly bad because Patreon actually brought a group action against these people. So anyhow, it's, Cactus Cedar says, I suspect Patreon started the suit against the bears just to dox them on Reddit. That's something that Cernovich has suggested. I don't think so. I think it was, one thing that you've seen in all of these cases, Uber and DoorDash and everything, is that they're desperate to try to get out of arbitration and into court in order to be able to impose costs on the other side. And so that's really what it's about. They've been once they learned that they couldn't hit back, and they tried to actually overturn the consumer status of Owen. They tried to claim, well, he's not a consumer because, he's a professional comedian. Well, so what? You're still a consumer. So, once that option failed, then that's when they decided they retreated to try to take it to court so they can try to hit back. But they didn't realize that people are, more than willing to, support these kind of things. We haven't even had the need to start a legal defense fund or anything. But if we did, I have no doubt that we could raise $1 million in a day. If we raised $1 million in a day to make a movie, I'm pretty sure we could raise $1 million in a day in order to defend what's going on here. Certainly people are of a hell of a lot more interested in this than they are in making the movie. So anyhow, it's Dolepole says, by that definition, anyone with a profession is not a consumer. Oh yeah, it was absolutely absurd. The way that California law is written, a consumer is a natural person. The way that most of the JAMS rules are written are a consumer party versus the corporate party. So, Charlie Chase says, the opponent always gets a say, and sometimes that say is suicide by stupidity. Sure, I mean, if that's what they want to do, that's absolutely fine with me. That's my preferred outcome. I would love to see, I mean, it was kind of funny. They even, in one of their filings, they even referred to my statement about collecting skulls as evidence that this was some sort of conspiracy to make money. It's like, no, you idiots. Skulls is you. Skulls is your job. I want you to lose your job because of what you did. Because that's the only way other people in Silicon Valley are going to learn. That if you do something stupid, like deplatform someone, you will lose your job. Now, obviously, I'm not at liberty to talk about certain things, but, I can guarantee you that every single time the Legal Legion has gone up against somebody at the company has lost their job. I mean, it's not a secret that Indiegogo doesn't have the same CEO that they did when they deplatformed Alt Hero. And they weren't the only people. And so, I fully expect that a number of people at Patreon are going to lose their jobs because of the very bad choices that they made over the past year or two. Yeah, well, people have pointed out that given my American Indian ancestry, I should say scalps, but we have a theme, we stick with it. Always make the rubble bounce, exactly. So, but it's let's see. Iamblicus 2 says, "Hi Vox, I'm curious about your positions on vaccines and Freemasonry. I'm skeptical of most vaccines, most though not all. And if you want to know more about that, I've written extensively on my blog. Freemasonry, I think all secret organizations are fundamentally evil. We don't necessarily know exactly how, we don't necessarily know exactly why, but I'm dubious in the extreme. So, hey Vox, do you think there will be an update to corporate cancer? Absolutely. Right now there's a redacted chapter. It's already written, and it will appear after in probably November 2021. Maybe there will be an extended. There's already one chapter about Patreon, so hopefully by then the whole situation will be done with and can be included as well. I have no idea if Alex Jones is accurate about that claim. Texas Hula Bear says, "Thank you for another great breakdown. Not tired of winning and still enjoying the fight." Excellent. I'm glad to hear it. I think let's see. Kindly requesting new unauthorized get speed up function. Yeah, we're working on that one after. We're going to work on the player after we get the subscription stuff resolved, and we make the transition from the dual system to the single system. Okay, I think I might have missed one. I apologize if I think I might have missed one. If I did, I'm sorry. They don't have that same feature where you used to be able to see them all in one place, which is very annoying. Thank you. I like my Yamaha bass too. Good eye. So anyhow, let me see here. Is Spain, Italy, Europe rebounding from quarantine? Actually, no. It's gotten worse. Well, Italy's doing really well, but Spain is not, and apparently the UK is not doing so well. Hans Schantz sends $5. Thank you. You ever call attention to WP own page on Wikipedia? I don't pay any attention to Wikipedia. I use Infogalactic. Woodson Bear says, thanks. You are welcome. How deadly is COVID-19? Not very. Brandon O'Neill says, doing my thing. Thank you, Brandon. I appreciate it. I too am attempting to do my thing. It's been a few weeks since we've had a weekly update for Alt Hero on Webtoons. We have a chance to get caught up on that soon. Yeah, I should be able to. Actually, it is Saturday, isn't it? I should have done it yesterday. To be honest, I was a little disenchanted with Webtoons because they were supposed to announce the winners of the short story contest, and I'm hoping that Midnight's War actually managed to win one of the prizes, but we'll see. And I'll just have to try to find the time to get back to that. Right now we've got a lot of sort of housekeeping business that is going on behind the scenes, and so that's been taking up a lot of the time. Welcome Mugen One, and Legionnaire Bear got disciplined by his bank. Hey, I told you there would be a problem. So, yes, I plan on adding installments to Vox'Versity. I'm just a little swamped. Maybe we should do one on the art of arbitration, huh? Sean says they just don't want to give you the award. That would be kind of funny if that's why they delayed it. They're like, wait, we can't give it to this one. Yeah, they delayed it from July 31st to August 12th. But no, we'll see. I think there's a decent chance, but you just never know. Would new claimants against Patreon deceptive practices have to prove they were damaged by it? No. It's considered intrinsic. But it's up, but it's also possible that the main reason for filing deceptive practices is not so much to claim damages, it's to get them to stop it. So any ETA for Owen's DVDs of the documentary box? No, that's just one of the things on the list. As an author, what do you think of the death of the author concept? I think that's retarded. I don't think that there's any possibility. That's just total nonsense as far as I'm concerned. Great, moths now. Let me see, did I cover everything that I intended to cover here? I need to double check. Yeah, okay, so I covered all the stuff that I planned to cover on the notes. But, the big takeaway is that, let's see, going after QAnon on Patreon doesn't seem to, oh, yeah, somebody said, I haven't read that, but somebody said the Daily Dot is complaining about QAnon-related Patreon creators. That should be hilarious if they were to deplatform them. It would be interesting just to see how little they've learned so far. But the problem is that a lot of people don't do anything. They're all used to not doing, people not doing anything. And that's the key is if you just humbly accept these deplatformings and stuff, you're going to get more. That's how it works. If you don't make the rubble bounce, then they'll just keep pushing you around. If Patreon goes bust, will you offer the monthly ebooks on Castalia? Yes, and because we didn't get anything out in July, we're going to they're going to be double double July August books. We'll get that announced probably early next week. Can you do an intro on Advanced Squad Leader? No, I'm not going to, because that would bore 99.9% of the people watching this to tears, and we would probably see the whole thing drop to 5 viewers by the end. Yeah, I mean, the problem is that, I mean, here's the thing. Oh, wait, Secret King says, I heard one of your friends disagreed with you. When is the debate? Yeah, it's always funny to me how, like, apparently everyone is supposed to agree about everything on everything. It's ridiculous. Let's see here. Rebel movie is coming fine. We're just waiting for the final stage of the financing to complete. Obviously, the coronavirus thing has had an effect on it, but it's all fine, at least at this point in time. Would you consider doing an oversized leather-bound Bible? Yes, but we need to wait until we can get the oversized paper. Right now, there are limits. There's a lot with the whole coronavirus thing. There's a lot of issues relating to paper availability. Doug Cannon says, the mess in the U.S. appears to be akin to Weimar Germany. Did the failure of the church in Germany lead to the rise of the Nazis? No. I don't think so. And if so, how will things be different in the U.S., racial versus religion? You can't compare the two. Germany was still Germany. The U.S. is no longer American. And so the power struggle is going to be much more complicated, much more widespread, and much more akin to the struggles in the Balkans than anything from the Weimar Republic era, the Weimar Germany era. So, can a claim of tortious interference be brought against the Daily Dot? No, of course not. I mean, what has the Daily Dot done? The Daily Dot hasn't done anything. They haven't interfered with somebody else's contract. Mr. Galtieri says, what sources would you recommend for good dialectic arguments in favor of Christianity, preferably geared towards those in the midwit IQ range? I don't know. I've never been a big reader of apologetics, and I don't pay much attention to midwit-oriented stuff, except for when I'm criticizing atheist books. Those are God delusion and end of faith and all that kind of stuff. That was all specifically directed at midwits. Even if I agree with some of the arguments, like in the case of some of the anti-evolution stuff, it's not very well formulated because obviously it's for midwits. Do you think that real Americans are going to end up losing the power struggle? I don't think that question even makes sense, because the country is going to break up. So they're going to win the power struggle in some areas, and they're going to lose the power struggle in other areas. And you're going to see a fair amount of ethnic and religious and maybe even ideological cleansing in the different regions of the United States. Skydancer says, I've long suspected the stock market is BS, nothing but glorified debt. What do you think? Yeah, I agree. It's obvious. I mean, the whole thing is just about getting loans from the Fed in the morning, bidding it up, and then paying back the loans with the money that you made in the evening. It's all just pump, pump, pump. So, anyhow, but people say, well, what can I do? What can I do? The most useful thing that you can do right now is subscribe to Unauthorized. At any level, we're adding new stuff all the time. We're going to be adding very soon some tactical training videos, the kind of stuff that YouTube would never allow. We've added the Forge of Tolkien, which is an academic's perspective and analysis of the works of J.R.R. Tolkien, which is fascinating. And there's going to be more stuff as well coming. And Big Bear's always got. I mean, there's already over 1,000 videos up there, and there's more video entertainment than you can possibly absorb. I mean, even those of you who seriously watch videos. And the best thing is that subscribers also have the ability to download the MP3. So if you don't want to sit and watch the videos, but you want to listen to the stuff, like a podcast, you can do that. And it's just going to keep getting better. And Tim says UATV has more than I can watch. Yeah, that's the goal. I mean, we want to have more creators, and in fact, we're already in some discussions with some very, very talented people to do a new channel that will be entirely separate from unauthorized, and is going to be mind-blowing. I'm not going to say anything more about it, but it's going to be awesome, and it's going to be, like I said, totally separate. None of the people on unauthorized will be on this new channel. This new channel is going to be on a very specific, it's going to have a very specific focus, and I think it's going to possibly be even more popular than unauthorized is. So, let's see. Apparently Big Bear's stream channel alone has 22 days, 11 hours, and 37 minutes of material. That's crazy. Mr. Peabody says, Alabama Panhandle doesn't wear the mask. Alabama is a bastion of testosterone. I have to admit, I have a lot of respect for Alabama, and not just because you guys have like the best state song. The Optimistic Pessimistic said, can there be a biblical evolutionary theory that's not necessarily Darwinism? No, because it doesn't work. Evolution, whether you want to call it Darwinism, but the concept of gradual change doesn't work. It doesn't fit the time frames involved. Jilly Bear says, do you recommend closing out 401ks and investing in something like land purchasing? If I made recommendations in investments, I would say the less you are involved with the system and the more that you're involved in real things, the better. But I don't do financial advice because there's, everybody's got different goals, everybody's got different metrics, and everyone's got different time frames. And so it's just a very bad idea. Unless that's what you do, I don't think it's a good idea. And frankly, I'm not very impressed with the performance of most of the people that actually do it. So, prediction for new channel, Vox somehow got Tucker. No, it's not going to be anything. It's not going to be anything like unauthorized. Just wait. Just wait. But I guarantee that that people will like it. So anyhow, let's see here. And also let's see. Having problems with unauthorized new registration. When did you sign up? It usually takes about a day to get the stuff out. Right now, we're in the process of merging the two systems, and so we basically have to do manual invites. So it's not automatic. Is UATV now entirely subscription only? Yes. Will visitors regain ability to see some free content? Yes, eventually. So the key thing is that once we have remember we built the whole thing from scratch. Remember when all the gammas were saying, they're not doing it from scratch. They don't have servers. Blah, blah, blah. Well, we didn't initially, but we do now. We don't have anything. For example, we don't have anything on Vimeo. Not a single video. And so the whole thing was just a process, and it's still a process. Right now we are transitioning the subscriptions with a minimum of disruption, and once we get that taken care of, then it's going to be much easier. So, and anyhow, I'll deal with more, address that later. But the point is that everything is working well. It's not necessarily working easily, yes, most of the people who are having problems, either figuring out how their sign-in works, or wanting to cancel and not being able to figure out how. Yes, in most cases it's because they're not doing something fairly obvious, but that's okay. We get it taken care of regardless, either way. So anyhow, so that's all I have, but it's going to be a interesting week ahead. There's obviously a lot of stuff going on now that the judge rejected the injunction. All the arbitrations are going ahead full speed. There's lots of new arbitrations being filed all the time, and so I'm sure we're going to be talking more about this in the weeks to come. In the meantime, have a good evening. I'm Voxday, and this is the Darkstream.